Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Shuklam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarvavighnopashantaye Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurur Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Sarvalokanam Bhishaje Bhavaroginam Nidhaye Sarvavidyanam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Shruti Smriti Purananamalaya Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad-pada Shankaram Lokashankaram Apara Karuna Sindhum Jnanadam Shantarupinam Shri Chandrasekharendra Gurum Pranamami Mudanvaham Sadguru Charanarvindabhyan Namaha Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. In Viveka Chudamani, we are seeing the Guru's answers for the Sishya's questions. The Sishya has asked 7 questions to the Guru, and the Guru has started answering those questions in a certain order. He first answered what is Anatma, what is non-self, and then he answered what is Atma, what is self, and what is the bondage, bandham, and how does it arise? How does the bondage get sustained? We saw answers for all these questions. What is bondage? Bondage is misidentification of our body to be our own self. When I say body, it includes the sthula sharira, the physical body, the sukshma sharira, the subtle body, which includes our mind, intellect, etc., and the karana sharira, the causal body. So what is bondage? Bondage is misidentification of our own self to be one or all of these bodies. That is the bondage. And how does the bondage arise? How does it operate? Bondage operates because of the 2 Shaktis of Maya. One is the Avarana Shakti and another is the Vikshepa Shakti of Maya. What is the Avarana Shakti? Avarana Shakti is covering power. The power of covering, the power of wheeling is called as the Avarana Shakti, because the Atman, the original nature of Atma, is covered, just like how a beautiful painting on a wall is covered by a screen, a white screen. That is the Avarana Shakti of Maya. And Vikshepa Shakti of Maya projects different non-self entities on top of our own self. Just like how a beautiful painting of a rose or a beautiful painting of a Krishna is covered with a white screen, and a Goramana, a pay padam, a pay movie, a thriller movie, or whatever movie is being projected on top of the picture, so that the wall is same, the same wall. Previously, when we looked at the wall, we admired the rose, we loved the Krishnas, but now when the movie is being projected, we get scared of the same wall. The problem is not with the wall, the problem is with the covering. The problem is with the avarana, that is the screen, and with the vikshepa, that is the movie that is being projected onto the wall. So that is how the bondage arises. And how is the bondage sustained? Acharya gave a beautiful example of a tree. A tree with its trunk to be the body. The seed of the tree, he said, the ankura of the seed of the tree is Maya. The ankura of the tree, he said, the leaves of the tree is Raga, and the phalam of the tree is Dukkham. The phalam, the fruit of the tree is Dukkham. The flowers of the tree is various sense objects. The body, the trunk of the tree is the body itself. But where is the Atman? The Atman is sitting like a bird, which is not associated with the tree. Bird is different from the tree, but the bird thinks tree to be its house. In the same way, we think our body to be ourselves, and that is the cause of all the problems. That is how the Maya gets sustained. And we also saw the story of the tale of two birds from the Upanishads in the last class. So, with that, that topic is over. And now we are going to see a very interesting topic and an important topic of how to get rid of the bondage. It means bondage. Okay, I give lectures and lectures about what is bondage, how the bondage arose. But if the teacher did not say you how to get rid of the bondage, then the class is of no use. And that is what we are going to see today, how to get rid of the bondage. And before going into the topic proper, the teacher is saying how not to get rid of a bondage. Say, if the room is dark, you have a power cut and the room is dark. That is like bondage. And what is moksha? Moksha is having light in that room, because moksha is freedom. You want freedom from the darkness in the room. So moksha is like having a light in that room. Whatever mantra I'm going to chant, it is not going to turn on a light. How much ever exercise I'm going to do, it is not going to turn on the light because there is a power cut. So the only thing that is going to dispel the darkness is turning a matchstick, is lighting a matchstick or lighting a candle. That is the only thing that is going to dispel the darkness in the room. Whatever else you do, you can chant anything, you can do any much, you can do a lot of exercise, you can do anything else, but anything else other than lighting a matchstick is not going to dispel the darkness in the room. Each and every karma, they will have their own benefits. Doing exercise, it is going to have its own benefit. Reading a physics book, it is going to have its own benefit. But the benefit is not going to be dispelling the darkness in the room. In the same way, whatever karma we do, they all have its own benefits, but it is not going to help us in gaining moksham. That is what Acharya is going to say. Nastrair na shastraihi anilena vannina छेत्तुं न शक्यः न च कर्मकोटिभिः विवेकविज्ञानमहासिना विना धातुः प्रसादेन श्रितेन मञ्जुना नास्त्रैः न शस्त्रैः न अनिलेन वह्निना छेत्तुं न शक्यः. Whatever weapon you use, it is not going to destroy Maya. It is not going to destroy your bondage. Whatever weapons, no weapon can destroy bondage, because bondage is not a physical entity. If you are physically bound to a pole, if somebody is having somebody tied me to a pole, then I am physically bound to that pole. Then I can use a scissors to cut that rope so that I can be a mukta. Mukta means what? Freedom. I can be a mukta. I can freely move around. But Maya, bondage is not like that physical rope which ties you to a pole. So whatever weapons I use, it is not going to destroy the bondage. It is not going to give me moksha. Na anilena vannina. It cannot be burnt by fire. It cannot be drowned in water. And nacha karma kotibhihi. Whatever karma I do in order to get freedom, it is not going to help me, because according to some other mathams, according to some other philosophies in our own Sanatana Dharma, how did human beings were created? Like how people were, why did Bhagavan create people? People will say, Okay, Bhagavan got angry at the people, so he created the people. He created the universe and then he put us in this universe because he was angry at us. If that were a cause, then you can do a lot of puja to please the Bhagavan in order to give you moksha. If that was the reason for bondage, if the reason for bondage is the angerness, is the angry, if a deity is angry and that is why you are being bound, then freedom from that type of bondage could be pleasing the deity, could be doing puja to the deity so that the deity is pleased and now I am free from my bondage. But the reason for my bondage is not that. Bhagavan is Karunamurti. He can never be angry at anybody. So how can he be angry at me? And then he put me into this Gora Samsara. We say Apara Karuna Sindhum. Apara Karuna. Bhagavan is ever Karunamurti. On the one hand, we say Bhagavan is Karunamurti. On the other hand, we say, hey, Bhagavan created this Gora Samsara and he put me into this samsara. It does not make any sense. If that were the case, if Bhagavan is full of anger, if he put me into this Gora Samsara out of his anger, then I can do any puja, I can do any yajna in order to please that Bhagavan, in order to please that angry Bhagavan to give me moksha. But our Bhagavans are all Karuna Murti. That is why they gave us this Shastram. That is why they gave us this Vedanta Shastram so that we can all be ever free. So, whatever karma you do, it is not going to give you moksha. What is going to give you moksha? Viveka, Vijnana, Mahasina Vina. Asina means a sword. Unless you cut down the tree of samsara with the sword of Viveka and Vijnana, with the sword of Jnana and discrimination between human beings, discrimination between various other jatis. No, discrimination between Atma and Anatma. Unless you have that kind of discrimination, unless you have the Atma Jnanam, the knowledge about your own self, you cannot get moksha, says Shastra, because the problem for samsara is ajnanam. So the solution for samsara has to be jnanam. If I get COVID, if I am infected with the coronavirus, then the problem for my illness is going to be the coronavirus that is inside my body. I can take any paracetamol. I can take any ibuprofen in order to relieve the symptoms, but any number of paracetamol, any number of ibuprofen, it is not going to help me get rid of the COVID virus inside my body. Only the solution, the treatment for COVID is to get rid of the virus that is present inside my body. All those paracetamol, all those ibuprofen, they do help. We have to take them as a subsidiary thing. But having paracetamol or ibuprofen does not constitute treatment for COVID. Then what should be done? Either the COVID virus have to be neutralized with antiviral drugs, or your own immunity should come and they should get rid of the COVID virus in your body. That is why Thiruvalluvar said, Noi Nadi, Noi Mudal Nadi, அது தணிக்கும் வாய் நாடி வாய்ப்பச் செயல். நோய் நாடி, you need to understand the disease. What is my disease? I cannot breathe properly. My temperature is rising. That is my disease. Noi mudal nadi. What is the cause of the disease? I probe more. I get CT scan. I know that I got COVID virus inside my body. I get PCR tested, RT-PCR tested. I get to know that I got COVID virus inside my body. Then adu thanikkum vainadi. Then I need to work on how to remove those viruses from my body. In the same way, first we need to acknowledge that we are in the problem of samsara. We are affected by the disease called as samsara. Then the next process is noi mudal nadi. What caused samsara? If the samsara is caused by anger of a deity, I can please that deity and get moksha. But samsara is not caused by anger of any deity. Samsara is caused by my own misunderstanding about my own self. So then the solution for samsara is understanding my own self. Viveka Vijnana Mahasina Vina Dhatu Prasadena Shitena Manjuna. So we cannot get samsara by doing any karma. Jnana Devatu Kaivalyam. Only with jnanam we can get moksha. Now the question comes, okay, it is the same Vedas who have prescribed me all those karmas. It is the same Shastra which has prescribed me all those karmas. Same Shastra said, hey, you have to do Sandhya Vandanam 3 times a day. Same Shastra says you have to do Devata Pujanam at least 1 time a day. The same Shastra has said you have to observe Ekadasi Vratam. The same Shastra has said you have to do this puja, you have to do that puja. But if all those pujas are not going to give me moksha, then why should I do all those pujas? People will ask this question, and it is the problem with all those neo-Vedantins or modern Advaitins, as they were called. So here in the next shloka, Shankaracharya clarifies that point. Hey, yes, Shastra says, Veda says, only Jnanam can give you moksha, but Jnanam alone cannot give you moksha. I mean, Jnanam in an unrefined mind cannot give you moksha. First, you have to do all those karmas. Those are adjoined by the Vedas. If Vedas say do Sandhya Vandanam, it is your duty to do Sandhya Vandanam. If Vedas say do Agnihotram, it is your duty to do Agnihotram. Yes, doing Sandhya Vandanam or doing Agnihotram is not going to directly give you moksha, but it is going to give you something that is recovered for getting jnanam, which is called as chitta shuddhi, which is called as purification of your mind. Because these days people try to hide behind Vedanta. People want to hide behind Viveka Chudamani in order for them not to do Shastrik karmas. But Adi Shankaracharya is very clear, and I want you guys to be very, very clear. Karma gives me Chitta Shuddhi. Karma gives me purification of my mind. Karma purifies my mind, and with that purified mind I study Vedanta, and that jnanam is going to give me moksha. Shruti pramanaika mate swadharma nishthatayaivatma vishuddhirasya. Shruti pramana ekamatehe swadharma nishta. Shruti pramana, you have to have faith in Shrutis. Shruti means Vedas. You have to have Shraddha in Vedas. Shruti Pramanaika. You have to have Pramanatva Buddhi in Vedas. You have to completely believe that Vedas are a Pramanam. By following Vedas, I will get moksha. So that is point number 1. Ekamatehe. Ekamatehe, 100% faith, absolute faith. You have to have absolute faith in the Shruti Pramana. Also, Swadharma Nishtha. You have to follow your own dharmam, because we are born into this universe. Dharmam means duties. Swadharmo nidhanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayavaha swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat, says Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Swadharmo nidhanam shreya. Whatever is your swadharma, it is nidhanam shreya. It is going to do good. If you, it is always going to do you good. Swadharmo nidhanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayavaha. You cannot be in one ashrama and take up the duties of other ashrama. Shastra has got varnashrama vyavastha. There is a varna vyavastha, there is an ashrama vyavastha. We are born into this varnashrama vyavastha. Bhagavan has given us those duties based on our previous karma. So we have to follow our varna vyavastha, we have to follow our ashrama vyavastha. Only by following our varnashrama vyavastha, we will be getting chitta shuddhi, we will be getting purification of our mind. I am a grihastha, I am a householder. My duty is to work towards my family. Yes, that is there. Just because I learn Viveka Chudamani, just because I am interested in Bhagavad Gita and Vedanta, I cannot just, throw all my householder duties and then take up to sannyasa. That is an absolute no-no. My swadharma is to take care of my family as long as I am in the grihastha. As long as I am a householder, I have to do that. That is my swadharma. I have to do all the karmas that is enjoined by Vedas for a grihastha. If Veda says grihastha, as a grihastha, you have to do pancha mahayajnas. What are pancha mahayajnas? We have seen long back. Bhuta yajna, manushya yajna, deva yajna, pitru yajna, rishi yajna. All those things, brahma yajna. All those things are a duty I have to follow as a grihastha. And as long as I am a grihastha, as long as I am a family man, no matter how much ever Viveka Chudamani I study, no matter how much ever Upanishads I study, I have to follow all those karmas because it is going to give me chitta shuddhi. These days, the problem is people will belong to different ashrama and they will quote Viveka Chudamani, they will quote Bhagavad Gita, they will quote Upanishad and say, hey, you have to leave all your karma. Na karmana na prajaya dhanena tyagena ike amritattva manashuhu, says Upanishad. So I am going to delinquish all my karmas. I am not going to do Sandhya Vandanam from today. I am not going to do any puja from today onwards because those are not going to give me any moksha. So I'm going to pursue the path of only the path of Jnana Yoga. Krishna says no, no. Bhagavad Gita says no, no. Acharya Shankaracharya also says no, no. Because Vishuddha Buddhehe Paramatma Vedanam. Only when you have Vishuddha Buddhi, only when you have a purified mind, Paramatma Vedanam, you can realize your own Brahmanhood. You can realize your own Atmanhood only when you have a pure mind. Previously we have told our mind to be a nice mirror. All of our mind is like a mirror which reflects the original sunlight. The original sunlight is Paramatma, it's the Atma Tattvam. All of our mind is like a mirror that reflects the sunlight. Only when the mirror is pure, we can see the sun inside the mirror. If a mirror is so much dusty, if the mirror is covered with dust, we cannot see any reflection on that mirror. True or false? Yes. If you want to see clearly the reflection of the mirror, then the mirror has to be clean. In the same way, if you want to have complete identification with Brahmanhood, then the mind mirror has to be clean. Is it enough that we clean our mirror only once and then leave it like that? In India, where there is so much dust, we clean the mirror one day, the next day it is going to be covered with a new layer of dust. So the process of cleaning the mirror should continue as long as you want to see your image on that mirror. In the same way, all those karmas should continue as long as there is a problem, as long as there is a possibility of that mirror getting polluted. Now, our minds are all polluted because we have so much vasanas. And if you want to atmanye, if you want to have that paramatma vedanam inside us, if you want to identify ourselves with paramatma swarupam, then first we need to clean the mirror, clean the mind mirror by doing karma yoga, by doing puja. Then we have to keep on cleaning the mirror, because one day if you don't clean the mirror mind, it is going to be dusty. Then you won't see the original image in that mirror. So we have to be very, very clear. Karma yoga, doing karmas, doing pujas is going to give me chitta shuddhi. It is going to give me, it is going to purify my mind. Only when I have my purified mind, I can enter into Jnana Yoga. Swami Dayananda and Swami Paramarthananda says, Karma Yoga is incomplete without Jnana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga is impossible without Karma Yoga. So both have to go hand in hand. So that we need to understand first. Okay, then how to gain freedom? What is the answer for how to gain freedom? You have to gain freedom by Paramatma Vedanam. You have to gain freedom by knowing the real Brahman. Who is the real Brahman? Whenever I say real Brahman, don't imagine Brahman to be some entity, which is present in some space, which is confined to some space, which is confined to some time. Brahman is our own self. Brahman is the very subject who is doing this inquiry. We have to be absolutely clear on this as well, because our mind will always try to objectify things. That is the dharma of our mind. The mind will always objectify things. Say, I am asking all of you guys to close your eyes and imagine a beautiful chair, which is a red color chair that is studded with a green color gems. If I ask you to imagine, you have not seen a red color chair which is studded with green color diamonds. You have not seen that before. But when I ask you to close your eyes and imagine a red color chair that is embellished with a green stone, we have absolutely no problem in imagining such chair, because we want to objectify that thing in our mind. Whatever the things, whatever words you hear, our mind will try to objectify that thing. In the same way, whenever we talk about Brahman, whenever we talk about Atma, it is the nature of our mind to objectify that Brahman. It is the nature of our mind to objectify that Atma. Whenever I say Paramatma Vedanam, we would say, okay, Paramatma is sitting in one place, I am sitting in another place, just like I am having a pen Vedana. Pen Vedana means what? Knowing that pen. Just like when I want to know the pen, I open my eyes, I see the pen. In the same way, Paramatma Vedanam, I close my eyes, I open my mind, I see Paramatma through my mind. This is what we all make that mistake, because our mind tries to objectify whatever the things the ears hear. But here we have to be absolutely clear. The real Atma, the real Paramatma, the real Brahman can never be objectified, because Brahman is the very subject himself. Because lot of people, even Jnanis has made this mistake. People will say, hey, I want to have Brahma Anubhavam. I want to have that experience of Brahman. Okay, I'm studying Viveka Chudamani for 1 year. I know what is Brahman. I'm going to sit in meditation tomorrow, early morning, Brahma Muhurtam, 4 o'clock. I'm going to sit in meditation and I'm going to meditate, 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 meditate. Slowly, I will see a smoke that is inside my mind. That in my meditation, I'm going to see that smoke. Okay, that smoke is Brahman. Or I am going to sit in meditation at 4 o'clock in the morning. I hear some noise in my ears and I recognize that as Brahman. That is absolutely wrong according to Vedas. Brahman can never be experienced because it is the very experiencer. Experiencer can never be experienced. So when I say Jnana Devatu Kaivalyam, when the Veda says the one who knows Brahman will get moksha, it means the one who knows Brahman as the subject gets moksha, not the one who objectifies Brahman get moksha. So Brahman, Atman, it has to be owned up. We can never get experience of Brahman. If we get Brahman experience, then it is not Brahman. If we get Brahma Sakshatkaram as sitting in meditation and I see a white smoke in my meditation or I hear a Om sound in my meditation, then I can guarantee you 100% that is not Brahman, because Brahman is the person who sees that smoke. Brahman is the person who hears that Omkara sound. It is never to be observed elsewhere. தேடி தேடி உன்னை தேடுகின்றார் உள்ளில் தேடி கண்டு கொள்ளலாமே. உள்ளில் தேடி கண்டு கொள்ளலாமே. It has to be realized within ourselves and not to be experienced elsewhere. There are a lot of Upanishads that speak about this. I want to introduce one more Upanishad called as Kenopanishad. Kenopanishad is one of the 10 Upanishads for which Acharya Shankaracharya has written commentary for. And Kenopanishad says, Shrotrasya Shrotram Manaso Manoyad Vachoha Vacham Savupranasya Pranaha Chakshuhu Chakshushas Chakshurati Muchya Dhiraha Pretyasma Lokad Amrita Bhavanti. Shrotrasya Shrotram, the one which is the ears for all ears. Manaso Manoyat, which is the mind for all mind. That is called as Brahman. Yad vachanabhyuditam yena vagabhyudayate tadeva brahmatvam viddhi. The one which cannot be spoken about, the one because of which we speak, that is Brahman. Tadeva brahmatvam viddhi. Yen manasana manute yenahur manomatam tadeva brahmatvam viddhi. The one which cannot be imagined by our mind, the one which cannot be objectified by our mind, but the one because of which mind does its work, that is Brahman. Please know, says the Guru. Yat chakshushana pashyati yena chakshumshi pashyati tadeva brahmatvam viddhi. The one which can never be seen with our eyes. Meaning what? Which can never be an object for our eyes, and because of which eyes objectify all the things, that is Brahman. Yat shrotrena na shrunoti yena shrotramidam shrudam tateva brahmatvam viddhi. The one which cannot be heard by our ears, and the one because of which our ears has got capacity to hear things, tadeva brahmatvam viddhi. That is Brahman. Yat pranena na praniti yena pranah praniyate tadeva brahmatvam viddhi. The one which is not enlivened by pranas, but because of that pranas has got capacity to enliven things, tadeva brahmatvam viddhi. That is Brahman. What does all these words say? In different words, the shlokas, all the shlokas mean the same thing. The one which cannot be objectified, and the one because of which everything else is objectified, that is called as Brahman. The subject, the observer, the subject is called as Brahman, says Shastram. In fact, the guru explains all those things to Sishya, and the Sishya and guru asks a question to Sishya. He says, hey, now did you understand Brahman? The guru gave all these explanations. Okay, the one which cannot be seen by eyes, the one which cannot be known by your mind, but the one because of which your mind has the capacity to know other things, that is Brahman, said the guru. And now the guru asked the question, hey, now do you know Brahman? The Sishya now is in dilemma. If the Sishya says, I know Brahman, then that goes against the guru's words, because the guru said the one which cannot be known by any mind, and the one because of which mind knows Brahman, mind knows other things, that is Brahman, the guru said in the previous shloka. Now if the Sishya says, hey Guru, now I know Brahman, then the guru will ask, how did you know Brahman? How do you know Brahman? Did you see Brahman? If the Sishya says yes, it is a problem, because eyes cannot see Brahman, the guru said. So the Sishya has to say, no, I have not seen Brahman. I have not, I have not heard Brahman. Then how do you know Brahman? The guru will ask. If the Sishya says, I know Brahman through my mind, then itself it is a problem. Then the guru will say, hey, you don't know, you really don't know Brahman. If the Sishya says, I don't know Brahman, then itself it's a problem. It is because then all the teaching that the guru has done till now will be waste. It means the guru does not know how to communicate properly. Now the Sishya is very clear. He says, I know Brahman, I also don't know Brahman. That is what the Shishya says. Naham manye suvedeti, nona vedati vedacha. He is using both. I also know Brahman, I also don't know Brahman. How to understand this? Acharya Shankaracharya writes beautiful bhashyam. He says, the Sishya understood. The Sishya knows Brahman as the very subject, and the Sishya says, I do not know Brahman as an object. Only then Brahman can be owned up. Only then you can get moksha by whatever other means. If anybody promises you, hey, I will show you Brahman, please do not believe it. I don't say. Shankaracharya is not saying. Vedas themselves are saying Brahman can never be objectified. Brahman can never come under any experience, because Brahman is the very experiencer himself. Okay, now my question comes, can I ever understand Brahman? Because whenever we understand anything, it is a mental process. It comes as an object of our mind. Okay, I understand E is equal to mc square. E is equal to mc square is a famous physics equation. I understand that equation. When somebody says, what he really means is that in his mind, that E is equal to mc square has the mind has objectified E equal to mc square. So the left hand side and the right hand side of that equation has been understood by his mind. So that is why he says, I understand the equation E is equal to mc square. Now the problem comes, how do you understand yourself as Brahman? Because when I say I understand myself as Brahman, it means the Brahman has become the object of my mind. But the same Shastra says, if the Brahman has become an object of my mind, it is not Brahman. Okay, then what is the use of coming to Viveka Chudamani class? What is the use of attending Vedanta class? What is the use of studying Vedanta? When can I know Brahman? Shastra says, Pratibodha viditam madam amritatvam hi vindate. Hey, You have Brahman experience each and every second, not as an object, but as the subject. When you are waking up, you are aware of each and everything that is surrounding you. How are you aware? Because you have a mind. How then how my mind is aware of everything? Because it is being blessed by Brahman. Because there is a original consciousness, mind only reflects a part of that consciousness. So whenever I see a reflection, it also means the original light is there. In the same way, Pratibodha Viditam Madam, whatever experiences I have each and every second, you are Brahman, and you understand that you are Brahman through your experiences. Don't understand your Brahman as the experiences, but understand that you are that Brahman through your experiences each and every second. Pratibodha Viditam Madam. When you are waking up, you get experiences. When you are dreaming, you get dream experiences. Even when you are deep sleep, even when you are in the Sushupti Avastha, even when you are having the deep sleep state, you are experiencing the deep sleep. You just don't know you are experiencing the deep sleep, but you are experiencing the deep sleep, because only then the next day, if somebody wakes you up, how did you sleep? We can say, hey, I slept peacefully. If you don't have any experience of your deep sleep, then we cannot say I had a good sleep. Because how do you know? There has to be a blank time, there has to be a blankness, there has to be an empty time, but we don't have those things. We experience even in our deep sleep state, just that we are not aware of our experiences. With that experiencer principle, that Brahman principle, that Atma principle is there even when we are waking up. That Atma principle is there even when we are sleeping, even when we are dreaming. Brahman is there even when we are in the deep sleep state. Only through all those experiences, you can realize that you are the experiencer. Whenever there is an experience, there has to be the experiencer, and that Brahman, our real nature, is the experiencer and not any of the experiences. And realizing that will give you moksha. You don't have to do any karma. You don't have to do any action in order to get moksha. All we have to do is this logical thinking and applying that in our day to day life. I am not this body. I am not my mind. I am not my causal body. I don't own up any problems that this body has. I am not affected by any defects that this body has. I am not affected by any kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. I am not affected by any of those chitta vrittis. All these kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya are just chitta vrittis. They are modification of my mind. I am not affected by any of those. All of those are related to the mirror. Whenever a mirror is broken, you will still have that original light. Say you have a mirror and you have a light, and that light gets reflected onto the mirror. All those blemishes that are associated with the mirror are associated with the mirror, and not they don't belong to that of the original light. Even when I break the mirror, it is the mirror that breaks, but that original source of light continues to exist even after the mirror is gone. In the same way, I was there, I am there, I will be there. My body, my mind, my intellect, they are like that mirror. I can keep them pure or I can keep them impure whatever the purified status, whatever the purity status of my body, of my mind, of my intellect, they are not going to affect my real nature, which is the original consciousness that blesses the body, mind, intellect. Knowing that is called as moksha, and applying that in our day-to-day life is called as Jivan Mukti. More on this we will see in the next class. Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.